have seen a lot of men break. War has a way of finding the cracks in a person and splitting them wide open. The battlefield does not care who you were before it, what oaths you swore, what brothers stood beside you, what you told yourself you would never become. It strips all of that away, slowly at first, then all at once. But Kliff was different. I watched him bury a brother in a cold, lush forest with fireflies drifting through the dark. I watched him survive a battlefield that should have killed him twice over. I watched him wake up in a world that did not know his name and did not care to learn it. And I thought I knew what kind of man that would make him. I thought I knew exactly where his road was heading. I was wrong about that, but not in the way you would expect. His name was Giles. I did not know him, not personally, but I knew of him the way you know of a man whose reputation crosses enemy lines before his face ever does. A Greymane, one of Kliff's own, and on this night, a fresh grave. The camp was quiet in the way camps only go quiet when someone is missing from it. That particular silence where you keep expecting a voice and it does not come. May he find his peace among his brothers. That is what Unka said, and Kliff had no words to add to it. Only a stone placed on that grave with both hands, like the weight of it was more than just rock. Some grief is too heavy for language. These men understood that. Brotherhood was not a word they used lightly. There was anger in that camp, the kind of anger that has nowhere to go yet. It just sits in the chest and burns. Ross was almost certain they had been betrayed. Someone had sold them out to the Black Bears. He was right, of course. But knowing a thing and being able to do something about it are very different problems. Inside the cabin, it was no different. The food was there, but nobody was really eating. Voices were raised. Fingers pointed at shadows, at names, at decisions, at the chain of events that had led them to a grave in the dark. Grief does that to a group of men. It needs somewhere to go, and when the enemy is not in front of you, it turns inward. Brothers who had bled for each other were now looking at each other sideways, trying to figure out who had talked, who had slipped, who had cost Giles his life. The anger had nowhere clean to land, so it landed everywhere. Then a man burst through the door with a sword in his back, and suddenly the anger had a direction again. Gian has fallen. The great leader gone, the land plunged into chaos. Pelon, once unified under one will, now a wound bleeding from every edge. The Greymanes fighting to uphold what was. The Black Bears fighting to burn it down. Kliff was extraordinary, I will give him that. I watched him move through that battlefield the way very few men can, not reckless, not afraid, just terrifyingly precise. He saw Unka surrounded and went to him without hesitation. He saw Nera in the grip of one of our larger soldiers, and he killed his way through to her like it was the most natural thing in the world. These were not small acts. These were not the moves of a man fighting to survive. These were the moves of a man fighting for the people beside him. There is a difference. Most men, when things fall apart, become very small very quickly. Kliff expanded. Then Jan went over the edge, and Kliff was alone. I cannot speak to what Muirden felt in that moment. Whether it was satisfaction or duty, or simply the cold arithmetic of war, that is not mine to know. What I know is that an archer put a bolt in his stomach. They disarmed him. Muirden grabbed him, stabbed him twice, cut his throat, and threw him into the river below. I remember thinking, that is the end of him. I remember thinking I would not think about this again.
Let this be a lesson to all you wolf whelps. Dead already. Give Gian my regards.
And then he woke up. Not on the riverbank, not in the mud. In darkness, surrounded by things that should not exist. A bracelet on his wrist that seemed to breathe light into the world around him. A place that floated somewhere between the living and whatever comes after. I cannot explain what he saw there. I am not sure he can either. What I know is that he came back from it. He always came back. A merchant found him in the river, fished him out, nursed him back, asked him if he was lost in thought. Lost in thought. As if a man with a cut throat and 3 stab wounds had simply been daydreaming. Kliff followed him home. And when a couple of soldiers came to shake the old man down for coin, Kliff dealt with that too. Quietly, efficiently. The way a man deals with something that is simply in the way. The merchant gave him a horse as thanks and showed him the road to Hernand. They rode together through waterfalls and mountain passes, a scenic route, almost peaceful. And Kliff rode with the expression of a man cataloging everything, taking inventory of a world he now owed nothing, and that owed him even less. Hernand, a duchy, a castle. The kind of place that looks like safety from a distance and reveals itself as something more complicated up close. They gave him a bed in a camp outside the castle walls. A soldier given a soldier's quarters outside the walls, away from the comfort. He slept, and when he woke up, he walked to the castle gate as if he owned the road beneath his feet. The guard looked at him the way guards look at people who do not belong, not hostile exactly, just indifferent. The attire was wrong. The clothes marked him as nobody. After everything, the battles, the graves, the river, the road, a castle gate turned him away because of what he was wearing. This is where I first started to notice something shift in him. Not the gate was just a gate. What I noticed was how he did not argue, did not explain himself, did not tell the guard who he was or what he had survived to stand there. He just turned around and walked into town. A man with something to prove makes noise at gates like that. Kliff made none. He was already solving the problem. The clothes he needed cost silver he did not have. So he went to the large manors on the hill looking for work. The kind of work a man like him does not naturally go looking for, but goes looking for anyway, because the alternative is standing outside a castle gate indefinitely. The manor guards threw him out. Of course they did. He looked like nobody. And nobody does not get audiences with the wealthy. So he worked. He chopped wood for a blacksmith. He pulled ore from the ground. He caught fish and handed them to a cook who turned them into something resembling a meal. He did the things that men without options do. Small tasks, honest labor, the invisible work that keeps a town running and earns you just enough to remind you how far you still have to go. A Greymane warrior, chopping wood for silver. I am not sure whether to find that poetic or simply sad. Perhaps both. And then he found a mask. I do not know where exactly. It does not matter where. What matters is what happened next, which is that he put it on, not literally, not at first. But something crossed his face in that moment. A calculation, a line being approached and then quietly stepped over. The code he carried, the one about brotherhood and honor and doing right. I watched it negotiate with the reality of locked manors and unguarded windows and chests full of things nobody would immediately miss. The code lost. He went in through the windows, both of them. He hit the first manor, missed some chests on the second floor, went back. Methodical, unhurried, the same precision he brought to the battlefield. Turned toward emptying other people's belongings into his pockets. He is thorough, I will say that. Whatever Kliff decides to be, soldier or thief, he commits entirely. He sold what he had taken to a black market merchant without visible hesitation. No glance over his shoulder, no moment of conscience that I could detect. The man who had placed a stone on Giles's grave with both hands 12 hours earlier was now haggling prices on stolen goods in a back alley of Hernand. The world broke him fast. Or, and this is the thought that has stayed with me longer, perhaps the world simply showed him what was already there. Perhaps this is who Kliff always was underneath the code. Perhaps the code was never the man. Perhaps it was just the armor. On his way back from the black market, he passed a house with smoke coming from the wrong places and a husband on the roof being loudly cursed at by his wife for failing to clean the chimney. He climbed up and cleaned it. Just like that. No calculation, no agenda. He saw a problem and he solved it. The same instinct that had sent him running toward Unka in the middle of a burning battlefield. The couple gave him the clothes he needed as thanks. He did not need to spend a single coin of what he had stolen. I find that detail quietly devastating. He could have simply bought the clothes with the stolen silver and walked away clean. Instead, by accident, by reflex, by whatever part of him still moved toward people in need without asking whether it was worth it, he ended up not needing the money at all. The theft was unnecessary. He did not know that when he climbed through those windows, but he knows it now. He walked back to the castle gate. Same gate, same guards, different clothes. They let him pass. That is Hernand. That is the world he has woken up into. Not a place that asks what you have done, or what you have survived, or what you have lost. A place that asks what you look like when you arrive at the door. And Kliff, who buried a brother, fought a war, nearly died, woke up in a place that should not exist, cleaned a chimney, robbed 2 manors, and sold the proceeds on the black market. Kliff looks the part now. Whatever lies beyond that gate, I did not know then. What I did know was that the man who went through all that hell had just talked his way past a castle gate with rewarded clothes and clean hands. I had expected him to be broken by all of it, diminished at least. He was neither. Beyond the gate, a new chapter was waiting, and it would not be kind.